Hi everyone, here are my top tips for lucid walking. Lucid walking isn't directly going to impact your enjoyment with your dog over Christmas, but if you are planning like long Christmas Day walks or nice walks with the family, especially if you've got things like you're going to be walking with a stroller or a young baby, and like toddlers and young children, and your dog is used to maybe just going off, like they've got good recall, they are used to getting out of the car, going off lead straight away, or they pull on the lead quite badly, especially if they're swerving all over the place for those Christmas family walks. It can get really difficult, and it's just one of those things that if your dog has no other behavior concerns, they're really good in the house, they're really good visiting family, they're really good with other people and dogs, working on your lucid walking can just be that one thing that sort of makes your Christmas, especially those Christmas walks, become that much more special. So the first one you want to have is a mode of walking. Or different modes of walking. Lucid walking is really, really hard to train, and if your dog has a history of pulling on a lead, we need to undo that history, and we also need a way of telling them that the new way is happening or the old way is happening. And the old way, if you don't have a dog that you've started training yet, or your dog you have no idea, like young puppy, rescue dog, that can be your kind of default. I'm going for a walk, I've got other things on my mind, I don't have time to train. That's your sort of default mode. This is really important because I cannot go out on an hour's walk and train lucid walking with any dog. It's not just my own dogs. With any, like if I was doing a training walk with a client's dog, I wouldn't be training the whole time. A, that's a really long time to be training your dog anything. B, it's exhausting for my brain. I can't focus on perfect lucid walking for that whole time. C, I might not want to. That's an absolutely fine and valid excuse. There might be also a really, really hard area that you need to work through. And if, for example, your dog, you're trying to socialise a young puppy, having a method that says, yeah, sure, just go say hi to the thing, as is appropriate, that's a different discussion, is going to be better than insisting you've got lucid walking all the time. You can get the lucid walking later. Like with Sonic, I just focused on getting a nice, well socialised dog, and then I worried about the lucid walking later. There are so many reasons why you would want different modes and being able to sort of switch the dog off and go, right, we're just going to go. This is particularly pertinent for like those Christmas family walks, because if it's all well and good training your dog, but if I'm training my dog, generally I'm focused on them and I'm not chatty. If I'm on a social walk, I need a way to say to the dog, I'm not paying attention to you right now, pal. Because sometimes if you're having like an intense family discussion, you can't give your dog 100% of the focus, and it's not fair to ask your dog to focus on you if you can't focus back on them with the same amount. So having different modes of walking simply means that you have either verbal cues that say walk nicely, or one that says, okay, just sort of walk how you're going to walk. Or you have different modes of equipment. So like if you've got a harness that's got a back clip, that is your nice walking mode, or you can pull on this mode. If you've got a harness with a front clip, same again. If you've got a collar, if you've simply got like a harness collar combination, then just essentially you would train your nice walking on one and your not so nice walking on the other. The longer your lead is, the easier your dog will be to find it to be right. If you've got a really short lead, and especially if you've got a tiny dog, and you're a tall person, that lead is only going to extend so far. And if your dog sort of takes a step away from you, they're pulling on the lead, that's really hard for them to go right. Even if they're sort of just trying to walk and the ground is making it so that they're moving that way, you're going to find that they're pulling a lot more because that lead doesn't give them space to be right and to not pull. Now, handling longer leads is a skill. It is hard, it can be challenging, and it can feel really difficult. I hated it when I first started it, but it is well worth trying to, even if it's just a slightly longer lead, trying to work with it in addition to training generally does make for easier lucid walking practice. You also want to make sure that you've got a really high rate of reinforcement. Lucid walking is a hard exercise for a lot of dogs. It involves a lot of self-control as well as focusing on sort of staying near you in a certain place and ignoring distractions, etc. If we have a high rate of reinforcement, which simply means in this time we're feeding a lot, or we're reinforcing a lot, we're playing with a toy, or we're sending off for pre-mac games if that's what we want to do, by reinforcing lots in that period of time, we've got a dog that's more likely to focus on us. if you had an hour and someone only spoke to you once, you're not going to pay them that much attention. Whereas if you have an hour and someone spoke to you once, someone reinforced you once, someone came in and went, here's 5p in an hour, you'd be like, oh, it's alright, it's a bit weird. But if every second someone was going £100, £100, £100, you're going to be paying that person a lot of attention. Help your dog through distractions. I so often see when we're working with clients on lucid walking that if a distraction's present, the client will just sort of keep walking as normal. They won't help their dog through it. So they've gone from an environment that is maybe like a 2 out of 10 on a distraction scale, and then they walk closer to something that suddenly takes it to like a 10 out of 10, but they're still doing the 2 out of 10 behaviour. If you are around distractions that have gone up in your dog's estimation, either your reinforcers need to go up or the assistance that you offer the dog needs to go up. So, for example, if I'm walking with Sonic and we're going to walk very, very close to a person on a pavement, I know she's probably going to want to say hi to that person. So either I can get her in a sit, wait for the person to go past, or I can put her on a hand touch and we can walk past the person on that hand touch because I can feel if she's going to come off my hand very easily and a change from there. Or I can literally just shove food in her face, like literally food in my hand, shove that in her face so that she's eating as we walk past the person. Or I can get really, really engaged with her and go, come on in, let's go this way, ignore that person, blah, 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 blah. And I can up my ante to change her response. If I just sort of carried on as if the pavement was empty, she's going to go and say hi to the person because that's who she is. That counts for anything. So if your distractions are the dogs, if your distraction is squirrels or sniffing, no matter what it is, if it is a case of the distraction level's gone up what you're doing in some way or another. Utilise pre-map principle where necessary. I'm going to try and put a link in the comments for reading more about pre-map principle because I don't have time to go into that. It's just a really nice way of reinforcing your lucid walking that is going to make it a more sustainable solution long term rather than just using food all the time. That said, feed where you want your dog to be. If you are using food, which is really common, you want to make sure that if you want your dog right by your side, that you feed them by your side. If your dog's surging ahead, you don't want to be feeding them out ahead of you. You want to be feeding them almost behind you so that we're combating where they naturally want to be with where the food is going to be. You should start to find that your dog is starting to, if it's working, they're charging ahead and then they'll slowly start charging less and less and less and less and less until they tend to be at your side as long as it is working. Move unpredictably if you can. We walk in long straight lines, picture a pavement, or like paths. They tend to be straight. They don't tend to be curved. They don't tend to be going in all sorts of weird and wonderful directions. They tend to just sort of be like, here's the straight line, walk down it. Dogs naturally walk faster than us, and if they sort of go, yeah, right, we're heading that way, they're going to naturally move faster in that direction. So if we can move unpredictably, obviously don't go running into the road in front of cars. It's unpredictable, but it also might kill you. But if we can suddenly do a few backward steps and then carry on walking forwards, it reminds the dog to check in with us and it reminds them to keep an eye on what we're doing and not surge ahead because they don't know if we're randomly going to change direction. If you have the opportunity to change direction very regularly, let's say you come to like a cross section or the path gets wider, do a couple of sideways steps, reinforce those, do a couple of backwards steps, then start walking forwards again. Always, the more your dog's thinking, I don't know where we're going next, the more they're going to stick with you. Training walks. In between now and your family Christmas walks, train your dog in the environment you're going to be. So, for example, I go to Bournemouth most Christmas. If I was going to go and do a training walk, I would go to Bournemouth Beach and I would train there. So I am getting out of the car with the intention of training the dog lucid walking. Doing that is going to be so much more beneficial than sort of training where you live and training, let's say you live right away from town and you're in like a little village that doesn't even have pavements. Training there is going to be completely different if you were going to London for Christmas and your dog suddenly has to walk on a pavement in London. So you want to make sure that, I'm not saying if you live 3 hours away from London, go to London for a training walk. I'm saying go into the centre of town for a training walk, go somewhere slightly busier, walk around your village at a really busy time of day, that sort of thing. So short, sharp training sessions to really focus on what you want to work on in the environments you're going to be needing them is going to benefit you hugely.